Hello everyone, welcome back to Flying Solo with Kat, and today we will be talking about The Force Awakens. On my Twitter, I put out a poll saying, hey, I'm gonna review the sequel trilogy movies sooner rather than later, but which one should I start with first? And of course, my whole thing was that I wanted to start with Tross. I have not watched Tross in a couple years because I'm too scared to. I had to do like immersion therapy with The Last Jedi. I rewatched the scene that I hate the most, which is at the beginning. I think it was 8 or 9 times because I had to write it for a fic that I was writing. And so I had to watch that scene 8 or 9 times. So now I can watch The Last Jedi. So it really was like immersion therapy for me. With Tross, I haven't had much of that yet. So I was really hoping it was going to be Tross. But of course, where am I to deny you guys? And you guys picked The Force Awakens, which is my favorite Star Wars movie in general. So I'm really not mad about it at all. So, yeah, basically this is going to be a bit different cuz I'm not going to kind of go through the motions of the movie. I'm going to be talking about characters. We're going to start with the Resistance characters, then we're going to go into the First Order. Then we're kind of just going to go into overall story, kind of why the movie's important, cinematography, the score, and also at the end, I'm going to kind of talk about the novelization and kind of things that I didn't like about this movie. Because just because it's my favorite Star Wars movie does not mean it has problems. So sit back, relax, and let's go ahead and get into it. So, before I get on to the characters, I do want to talk about why this movie is important. Truly, it boils down to, I mean, it's the first Star Wars movie under Disney. It's the first one in the sequel trilogy, first one after prequels, which we thought was it. We thought that was all we're getting. We're just going to get TV shows now or animated series. But no, we finally got the sequel trilogy, of course, when Disney bought Lucasfilm back in 2012. And then, of course, announced the movie in 2014 for it to come out in 2015. The entire cast was super hyped for it. Everyone was hyped for it. And the overall consensus on this movie is it's okay. It's quite honestly a lot of people's least favorite out of the three, which is a bit shocking to me. I understand where they come from, though, in the sense of it is literally a new hope. Like, they're not doing anything different. I do feel as if they played it safe, but is that such a bad thing? One of the reasons I love this movie is because of its ties to A New Hope. It feels like you're back at 1977 and rewatching A New Hope. It gives me that nostalgia, and quite honestly, I don't think that's totally a bad thing to knock a movie on. I think the fact that it has its connections to the OT should actually make people enjoy it a bit more, based on the complaints of the other two movies. So, this movie did amazing. I mean, it hit, I think it's still in like number 11 or 12 spot for the highest grossing movies of all time. So, it did that, which I think is great. And overall, this movie is really good. It's my comfort film. Whenever I'm feeling down or sad or sick, I turn on Force Awakens and I feel something again. So, this movie is really, really special to me. And I think to so many people that it's really, for a lot of the sequel trilogy fandom, our little, spots in it, in the entirety of the Star Wars fandom, this is where we started. I mean, we were just having a talk about this yesterday on Twitter. Is that the Kylix fandom? It's we've been shipping them for 10 years, and I would say the same for Reylos, right? They've been shipping them for 10 years. Finpo shipping them for 10 years. I mean, it's such a big community. Now, granted, I've not been there in those communities for 10 years. I've been there 5 years, which I still think is like kind of crazy. And even that is a lot. But the fact that we still have people from 10 years ago that are still prevalent in the fandom today just makes my heart so full, and that how these movies really shaped the fandom and how this movie in particular started everything. No matter if people don't like the next two or love the next two, they still hold Force Awakens in the regard of it was the start. It started all of this. It started our love for the sequels. And me personally, that's how I feel about Force Awakens, as it started everything. It's kind of how A New Hope feels. It starts off the entire saga, kind of, because it was before the prequels. So having Force Awakens, there's just something special about it, and such a community aspect where it's a beautiful film, and I appreciate it being here, because if it would have been different, I don't know if I would have liked it as much. And I was kind of concerned to do a rewatch of this movie for maybe the over the 20th time. I can quote the whole movie, which I did this time, which is really funny. And I was concerned, though, you watch a movie too many times and you don't like it anymore. I've had that with a couple movies, or you never watch it again. And I was kind of getting concerned in the sense of, oh my gosh, am I never going to like this movie again? What if I don't like it? What's, truly going to happen? And, am I going to find things that I don't like now? And I didn't. My thoughts did not change at the end of this movie. Have they, even though I've watched it 20 times, they've not changed since the first time I saw it. A couple of things I've noticed a bit more because I am, in the Star Wars fandom a lot more now than I was back then. But for me, it still holds up. And it is still my favorite Star Wars movie. There's been a couple that have been getting really close to, but for me, that is why it's important and why it truly started off the sequel trilogy. So now we're going to actually get into characters. Again, I'm going to start with Resistance characters, and then we'll go into First Order characters. So the first character that we meet, of course, is actually BB-8, which I thought was super cute. But then we get Poe and Lor San Tekka. We don't know who Lor San Tekka is in this movie. That is also another thing I will say in this review, is that I will really, really try not to allude to The Last Jedi or Rise of Skywalker in this review, because those things didn't exist when Force Awakens came out. So I'm going to try to be as unbiased as I can between those movies and try not to compare them. So we don't know who Lor San Tekka is. But we meet Poe Dameron, and, he's talking with Lor San Tekka. And you can already see he's kind of given the vibe of a Han Solo Leia, type thing. Kind of a, flyboy, working for the Resistance, wanting, to do the right thing. And of course, I love BB-8. So it was really cool to see him in action. I still remember one of the interviews of Oscar Isaac that JJ was going to kill him off. That was going to be it for his character. And Oscar was like, hey, dude, I still think there's a lot that we can do with this character, a lot that this character means to so many people. Let's try to keep him in as much as we can. And yeah, man, I'm so glad Oscar spoke up for himself. Because I can imagine how that sounded, right? Like, hey, keep me in your Star Wars movie. Make me in all 3 of those movies so I don't just die off the bat. So I'm very happy that Oscar won that battle. But, so yeah, first initial thoughts of Poe. I love him. I loved him in the entire movie. I think he just is the embodiment of the Resistance. And I love his relationship with Finn. I can't mention him without mentioning Finn. And it is so obvious that, I always go back to this movie wondering, man, is Finn Poe really, it? Maybe it's just, no, it is so it. It is in your face almost. It is crazy, the friendship and even more the love that you feel between the two. So for me, that was truly special to see that again, and their relationship. But Poe, just how he interacts with Leia, how he interacts with the rest of, his fighters, you just get the sense of this is our guy. This is the embodiment of the Resistance. So I really like him. He's very basic in this movie, as a lot of these characters are. Unfortunately, that is a critique. That's not really a critique of the movie. It's more on the other two. But I'm really happy that we got to see more of him. And then we get to meet Finn. I love Finn in this movie. We see the stormtrooper, basically, we finally get to see a stormtrooper with their mask off. I mean, we get to literally see him with his mask off. And also just the humanity in a stormtrooper. Of course, we've seen them in the movies or even with the clones. They got a bit more fleshed out, but they're the same face, right? But in the First Order, in the Empire, they were many, many different people that signed up to be a part of the Empire. And to see that humanity in that stormtrooper was amazing. And the fact that it was Finn was even better. And we got to see him kind of become his own. That scene, of course, with his friend in the blood and his helmet is very poetic. But his whole thing of not shooting the townspeople and putting his blaster down, that is, with the John Williams music behind, I mean, he's a mastermind, but it is very, very beautiful and poetic. I love his relationship with Phasma. Phasma is imposing in this film, but also not. But I love when she interacts with Finn and when Finn interacts with her. You could tell there's a history there, but you want to know more. And I think that was done really well to where, okay, no, she's a bad guy. And Finn doesn't like her, but why doesn't he like her? But it didn't take away from the movie. So I felt like that was good. Finn and him using the Force and him using the lightsaber. Let's get into this a bit. I love Rey. Y'all know I love Rey. Rey is my girl. She's my hope. And I always think the plan was to have her as the face. I'm not going to put names on anyone saying, oh no, it was a whole thing of like the Force is female or whatever. Absolutely not. I think Rey was always the plan to be the main protagonist. But Finn with the blue lightsaber in this movie just hits so differently. And I love it so much. I miss him with the blue lightsaber. I miss him holding the lightsaber and, not really knowing much, but, wanting to protect his friends, which is very Jedi-esque. And there were definitely setups of him using the Force and him continuing with Rey and him and Rey fighting Kylo Ren. And I'm a bit saddened when we see that. And I know I said I wasn't going to bring up the other movies, but you know what I mean. And I know there were a lot of different things going on, in real life with that entire storyline. And I'm not going to point blame at anyone. Besides Lucasfilm, I think they kind of messed everything up. But, and Disney, I think just the overall story for Finn was really well done in this movie, and I wish it was developed on a bit more in the next installments. But quite honestly, if you love Finn and you love him as a Jedi, watch this movie. That's all you need. And yeah, it makes me hope that Rey's New Jedi Order will have Jedi Finn, and we'll get to see him again. So I really liked Finn in this movie. I think John Boyega is a beautiful mastermind, and much love to him. He did amazing. Next, we get to see Rey. Now, what I really noticed in this, 80th rewatch is that she actually doesn't speak until she meets BB-8. And that felt very integral to her story. It felt like she was alone, right? I mean, we saw everything in her actions. She was very much alone. And the fact of her not speaking until she meets BB-8 is very poetic in a way of her kind of coming out of her shell and realizing her greater purpose. So I really, really, really like that, and that really stuck out to me. And Rey's literally us. She is the audience. She puts on that rebel helmet. She's sitting in the sands of Jakku on a ATST. She's alone. She doesn't know much about the Force or the rest of the galaxy, but she finds it interesting. Then when she meets Finn, of course she wants to do the right thing and get BB-8 home. That's what she wants to do because she knows of course she finally realizes her family's not coming back. And with the help of Maz, she realizes her full potential, but also with Kylo Ren. They are very much opposites. I do think that Finn is more of an opposite to Kylo than Rey is in Force Awakens. So I do think that Rey and Kylo, we'll get into that in a second. But Rey overall, I think her relationship with Han, and just she's the audience. She's playing the audience and wanting to discover more and learning more about herself. And as a character, I find it so entertaining. I love her, but I also love Finn, and I think that they worked off of each other really, really well, in the sense of they, they worked well together. They, their characters really played off of each other well. Rey and Kylo, their scenes are really weird to me in this movie. Which I know I'm gonna get a lot of hate on. Look, y'all, I get it. The Last Jedi develops it really, really well, and Rise of Skywalker, I get it. But like Force Awakens, y'all, I don't see it. The fact, this is gonna be a hard topic because I'm gonna try to articulate it in the best way I can without insulting anyone. I get the whole enemy thing and enemies to lovers, but he did kind of kill her father figure, his father, right, in front of her. And then Rey kind of became like Han's daughter, which then doesn't really make anyone, or at least me, feel that great because Han left his son, which is why he turned to the dark side. So I kind of find that a bit weird. Him coming back with her and whatever, that's not too weird. I think his whole thought process was, hey, this girl is strong in the Force. Maybe I could teach her so we could overthrow Snoke together. And I think Last Jedi develops on that very well. But you really have to read between the lines in Force Awakens to go, oh, that's his plan. Okay, he doesn't just want to take her back to his lair and, do all the weird stuff. So for Rey, I think her hatred is palpable, and made sense because like Kylo hasn't shown anything good towards her at all, and her being rightfully angry at him and not really knowing what the hell is going on, is good. So I'll get more into Kylo Ren a bit later because I think that's a big thing. But overall, Rey's character was really good, and I loved that she went at the end. She went to go find Luke, and that is where, of course, the next movie leads on. So I loved that aspect of it. Next, we get to meet Han and Chewie. I, of course, love Han and Chewie. I do think that Han, is literally just Han. I don't know if that's much different. I love how Alden Ehrenreich, of course, played Han. Y'all know this. But I think if they uncharacterized Han and made him like an old, angry man that was like yelling at everything and, really depressing and whatever, I do think that would have been too starkly different to where people would have been like, oh, I don't like this version of Han, which is kind of how they went with Luke in that sense, right? And people did not like that. But I do think it worked better for Luke than it would have with Han. So long story short, I like Han in this movie. I do think that Harrison Ford, just plays characters how he's always played them. I don't think he changes it up a bit much. You kind of see that in Dial of Destiny with Indiana Jones. He doesn't really change up Indiana. He's kind of just a bit older and, kind of can't move as fast, but really that's the difference. You get to see a bit more of his humanity, but Harrison, I think, just plays the characters like he's young, and I think that works for him really well. And I think in this movie it did okay too. Chewie, I love him, amazing. I do feel as if they were a bit shoehorned in, but that's not really a complaint. Quite honestly, I'm happy they were in the movie, and I think Han working off of Rey and Han's relationship with Finn as well, which a lot of people seem to forget, was really cool. And I enjoyed him in the movie. I think his Death was necessary. Finally, he got his death. Harrison Ford was like, thank God. I always cry during his death scene. I think that, quite honestly, I think this time I didn't think I was gonna cry because I'm like, whatever. I've seen it 80 times. But I did. I did cry. It is one of the most. I don't even know how to talk about it. It is just one of the saddest scenes in a movie, and just the emotion that Harrison and Adam put on screen for that scene was probably one of the best in the entire movie. So props to him. And I mean, he shows back up in the last movie, but I think this was a good final for him, to be honest. I think it was really good. Of course, we meet Maz. Love her cantina. Very much of the cantina from A New Hope. I liked how she kind of led Finn and Rey to realizing their true potential. I think that it shouldn't have been Han, or it shouldn't have been Leia or whoever. I think it was good to have someone kind of new come in and show them the way. My main complaint for her is, how did you get Luke's lightsaber? Can we talk about that? How did you get that? It's not a story for another time. Let's talk about it now. So, that is my only gripe about her. It's like, girl, how do you have his lightsaber? Like, calm down. I'll do an honorable mention for Hostinian Prime, R.I.P. I'll talk about it a bit more in the novelization, but that scene is one of the saddest scenes in a Star Wars movie. For many reasons, which I think a lot of people are going to see it a bit different now, because we get installments like The Mandalorian and Ahsoka. At the time, though, everyone was like, okay, a bunch of planets got blown up. Alderaan made a big impact because it was Leia's home planet. Hostinian Prime doesn't really house anyone that we knew of. Also, I will get into the novelization. Give me a second. But why should we feel sad for this planet? Now, if you're a regular person, I mean, yeah, you're gonna feel sad. But if you're a moviegoer and trying to look at, why do I feel these certain things? And yes, no, you really won't feel sad for them. Next, we get to meet Leia. I love that she was in this movie. I'm not going to say Carrie Fisher was not supposed to be in there. If Han's there and Luke's there, of course she's got to be there. I love that she's a general. I think that she goes back into general mode, and she's the same Leia that we saw in Empire Strikes Back, with, everyone looking towards her and hoping that she'll have answers and everything. And I think that was special. And seeing her there was really nice. And, she'll always be General Organa to most of us in the fandom, because that's our girl. We love Princess Leia, but General Organa she led the resistance to victory, truly. And she brought her son back, and there's not much more heroic stuff than that. So it was great to see her, and I love her and Han. I will talk about her and Han in a bit, because that is one of my complaints for the movie, but I will get after that for the characters. C-3PO, still the same, just with the red arm. And Luke, which he had no speaking words, and I remember the main joke in 2015 when I went to go see it, and I remember walking out of the theater, and the person I was with saying, I wonder how much he got paid for standing on that island for 15 seconds. And I remember telling that for a couple years for my friends. I were thinking about that. I wonder how much he got paid for just standing on that hill. So Luke doesn't have much, but it was good to see Mark Hamill and in that, old Luke garb, and it got people excited for the next movie. Next, we're going to move on to First Order characters. Kylo Ren. My boy. He's not good in this movie, y'all. And that's my hot take for this movie. It's not that I don't like him, but I think he is so much better in I know I said I wasn't going to mention it, but Last Jedi and Tross. In this movie, he just feels like a discount Darth Vader. And I do think that Adam tried to do as much as he could. And that's why the scene with Han is the most emotion you feel about him. Also, the fight in the forest. I think Kylo Ren, throughout the first third of the movie, is just literally Darth Vader. You get no emotion for him besides the sexual tension he has with General Hux. So I literally don't feel anything for him. Even when he's interrogating Rey, even when he's interrogating Poe, I'm just like, okay, whatever. Like, I don't see the connection. But when he's with Han, I'm like, oh shoot, Adam Driver is acting. And I connect with Kylo Ren there. And truly, I do wish that we got to see more of him and Snoke. We got to see him with Hux a lot, and we kind of get that feeling of them having that sense of, enemies and being pitted against each other. But even then, that's not a character trait for him. That's kind of just something he has on the side. So he's not great in this movie, and I'm okay to say that. I think that he kind of lacked in this movie, and when a lot of people remember him, they're either remembering him from The Last Jedi or Tross putting into this movie, or from Fix. And quite honestly, I think I've read more fics that characterize him better than the actual movie. So overall, I'm not mad, that for what he was. It was a great introduction to him. I just wish there was a bit more, and it wasn't just in the last, 30, 45 minutes. Captain Phasma, I loved her. Y'all know me. Love Captain Phasma, Gwendolyn Christine. I love her relationship with Finn. I think that even though she was on screen for minimal time, she really was a powerhouse, and I felt her connection with Finn, but also with Hux and Kylo, and it felt like that evil trio that we got minus Snoke. And especially you go back and look at the photos, for Force Awakens, a lot of the press photos, and it's a lot, the three of them together. I mean, they were the dark side trio, and then we had the light side trio. So I think for them, it was really cool to see Phasma there. Do I think she should have been on the poster compared to Hux? No. I will always die on that hill. Like, oh my god, she's a female stormtrooper. Like, who cares? I love her, but you know what I mean? Like, she didn't have that big of an impact compared to, like, Hux in this movie, or even Snoke. But Snoke I get more of because he was more secretive. You don't show Palpatine on the thing of freaking A New Hope. So, overall, love her. Amazing. Next, I'm going to give out a shout out to the finalizer. Oh, beautiful queen. We see her so much in this movie. If it's literally the opening shot, or when they're flying from Jakku. Of course, John Williams just accompanies that scene so well. But, oh god, it is a beautiful ship. Oh, I love it so much. Anyway, now I could talk about my favorite character, General Hux. Goddamn. I mean, this movie made him. I'm like, not Donald Gleason. He had, he did better movies before this. I'm not about like Hux. Like, this movie, he just had the time to shine. That kind of shined more for him in this movie than the other two. His speech still gives me chills. Gleason's acting after that scene, of how you can see in his eyes the remorse, the satisfaction, the anger, the sorrow. You see so much of that without him moving his mouth. And it is one of the most horrifying scenes in probably all of Star Wars. I mean, it's literally a Nazi speech, but it is so integral to what the First Order is and what the Empire was in the new generation. And I think more and more people are appreciating it every single day, of why that was so important to put in. His whole relationship with Kylo and with Snoke was really, really well done. You felt like he was trying to stay on top and trying to do everything right while Kylo was falling apart. And he was trying to take advantage of that. And it really put him forward as a meaningful villain. And I do wish they kind of kept up with that. But in this movie, you were like, okay, no, he's on the same level of as Kylo Ren. Just because he doesn't have the Force, he is not just a Tarkin to Darth Vader. Tarkin died on the Death Star. I mean, whatever, but Hux was smart, and he ran, and he went to Snoke and got Kylo Ren, and brought him back. So he was smart, not saying unlike Tarkin, but in that sense of you knew he was imposing and knew he thought differently. So I love him. Y'all know I love him, and this movie just really is my comfort movie for him, and wouldn't ask for it any other way. Next, another shout out to Star Killer Bay. Love you so much. Literally the coolest thing ever. It is so much better than the Death Star. Don't even get me started. Don't even. It is so much better than Death Star and Death Star 2. The thing that basically it's an entire planet, right? Ilium, which I think is super cool. And then it takes the power of the sun. And what I think, cinematography wise is really cool about that is basically we have our characters trying to stop Starkiller Base, but there's a time limit. Basically, when the sun runs out, when it gets all dark, then they have to, it's gonna fire and kill everyone. So the visual of that was super, super cool, especially as Rey and Finn were watching as Kylo killed his father, but also as they went into the forest where it just got darker and darker. And so it was very much a natural progression, and I think a lot of people miss that, but, thematically it looks amazing and kind of tells a cohesive timeline of, where everything is. So I thought that was super cool, and overall one of the best weapons, and I love Starkiller Bay. Snoke is okay. Snoke is Snoke. I don't know. I wanted him to do more in this movie, but granted, you didn't have Palpatine do a lot in A New Hope or even Empire Strikes Back. So I'm not mad about it. I think they played it too safe with Snoke in not introducing him. I mean, it's Andy Serkis. Like, come on. Like, let the man act. But I do wish we had a bit more of him in there and, maybe present a bit more, but then it would have been more of a struggle to get him off the planet if it was going to blow up. So kind of, I understand why he wasn't there. It doesn't really make me mad, but I like Snoke in this movie. I just wish he wasn't a hologram. And then last shout out, of course, to the Darth Vader skull. How you caused so many people so much anger and hate. It's not that bad. I don't hate it. I see it more as my personal headcanon is that Snoke created it for Kylo to meditate on so he felt closer to his grandfather on the dark side, but of course it was just a lie. Shocker. Snoke would lie? What? But it just, without that kind of being present at the moment, and I do wish we kind of had a comic of Snoke making up the Darth Vader helmet and giving it to Kylo. I do kind of wish that, but I remember it pissing a lot of people off. Overall, I think it's okay. I'm not too mad about it. It looks sick. So, anyway. Cinematography, I've brought it up a couple times, but it feels like it's 1977, but it's 2015 with the 2015 graphics, because it looks amazing, but it feels like it's 1977 of how it's shot. I think JJ was very integral with how he shot the movie and, where he had certain characters at. And I definitely, with this rewatch, I noticed that a lot more. And I appreciated it a lot more, especially when they're on Starkiller Base. I really tend to appreciate it, just how beautiful everything is and where everything is placed. So, yeah, it's amazing. And I love that aspect of this movie, is it's visually beautiful. John Williams, the man that you are, you created my favorite song in this movie. Um, of course, it's Starkiller. If you all have not listened to Starkiller on the Force Awakens soundtrack with the violins, please go do it. It has been my one song, I think my most listened to song for the last 3 years. Um, it is still my favorite Star Wars song because of what it means and because of how beautiful it is. Um, I guess I'll give a shout out to Rey's theme too. I mean, it was all right. But no, overall, the Force Awakens soundtrack was really, really good. The amount of new music that still felt like Star Wars was so well done. And overall, it felt like a new era of Star Wars. And it wasn't like he was just putting like the Force theme into it haphazardly. He was truly creating a new score and a new soundtrack. And I love it so much. Go listen to Starkiller if you have not. I swear. Go do it now. Last thing I'll talk about, because I've been rambling on for almost 40 minutes because, I have to, is the novelization. Now, I read the Force Awakens comic, and then I also read the Force Awakens novelization. I will say, the novelization is a bit better than the actual movie. I think the movie does a great job at showing it visually, but if you want something that explains how did Poe, get it out of Jakku? How did he get back to the Resistance? Why do we need to care about Hostinian Prime? Did General Hux actually save Kylo Ren off of the planet, or did they just blow up and won't show in the next movie? A lot of the answers that everyone had were answered in the novelization, and I think for me personally, that's what matters most. And a lot of the answers, a lot of the questions were answered in that novelization, and it was a basic novelization, but I think it was really well done. And I think for the entirety of the sequel trilogy, I prefer the novelization actually. When it comes to OT, I actually prefer the movies, funny enough, I think besides New Hope. But when it comes to sequels, I actually prefer the novelizations because I feel like they just flesh out the story so much more, and that's why I never really get deleted scenes as well. What do you mean waste time in a movie? Like, I don't understand. Put as much as you can into a movie and create art. Truly. There's going to be some people that don't like it and some people that do. But, I love like 3 hour long movies. So I always say extend the runtime. Extend the runtime as long as you can. And of course, there's certain scenes that you should delete from movies and should not be in there. But at the same time, I think that fundamentally, if you have a scene that explains why we should care about something, do not take it out, especially after you film it. Do not take it out. So, overall, novelization is good. I only have two things that I do not like about this movie. First thing is the Han and Leia interaction on the Dakar base, which is the only interaction that they have in the entirety of the movie before he dies. Are you frickin' kidding me? They do this whole exposition on I saw our son. Oh, I never wanted to leave you. Oh, no, it was my fault. I just pushed you away. I remind you so much of him. No, it wasn't us. It was Snoke. No, it was you. What are you talking about? Yes, Snoke manipulated him, but if you did not leave him, are you really blaming Snoke right now? What? If I was a parent and I pushed my child away from me and went to somebody else, I would probably blame myself a bit more than the person that took him in. I'm just saying, it felt so like they were reading a script and I did not like it at all. And it felt honestly really sad for Kylo. Kylo's over here really struggling, and his parents over here no, it was Snoke. It wasn't us. Like, we were good parents. We had good times. Like, what? No. Like, from everything I've seen, like, you guys weren't that good of parents. Like, I don't think it was that good for Ben Solo. So, the only part of that I like is where Han goes, well, Luke couldn't get through him or whatever. And Leia was like, well, Luke is a Jedi. You're his father. That I do think is a good, thing and exposition and everything. But it just felt so. We're missing so much of a gap with Ben Solo, and that is why I'm hoping Tales of the Jedi Season 2 develop on Ben Solo and his rise and fall. Oh my god, Dave Filoni, please. Please. Um, so overall, that's the one thing I don't like. And the second thing I don't like is I don't like the Raptor scene. I'm sorry. I kind of just skip over it. Like, why couldn't we have all those, like, good deleted scenes like Rey and Finn on the truck speeder, or Hux saving Kylo in the snow, or literally Leia sending the person to Hostinian Prime and then we see the same person get blown up? Like, why? Those were so much better scenes than what, like, we have to have like a full Rathtart chase. Like, I like the Guavian Death Gang. I think that was cool, but like, man, really? So that's my only two complaints, but are they that bad? Absolutely not. Overall, this is my favorite movie, and like I said, I could talk about it for probably an hour. So, anyway, guys, thank you so much for listening. I will probably be doing another poll in the future. So, as I said before, if you want to follow me on Twitter, it is at Flying Solo Star Wars Podcast. And y'all get to vote for which one I'll do next. So, anyway, guys, thank you so much for listening, and I will see you